Good evening, workshoppers. Well, to say that a lot has happened since the last episode is a bit of an understatement, and I guess I really don't need to preface it all that much, given it's just been the talk of the town in every single Blizzard community. But yeah, we've got some things to talk about in this episode. So welcome to episode 215. We've got some things to talk about. If you only caught the VOD or the live show on Twitch from episode 214, you might have missed it. But for those of you that watched on YouTube or were just listening to the podcast on the audio streams, you will have seen that I did go through and make a statement, because literally the day after I recorded episode 214 was when the lawsuit against Activision Blizzard, going through and taking them to town for, rampant cases of sexual harassment and discrimination, got filed by the state of California. And I felt that, to go through and just have this happy, cheery, upbeat episode, the future is so bright, when literally in between the recording and me publishing it, this lawsuit goes through and drops. And it's not just the lawsuit, but then it's the outpouring of stories from everyone that had been affected by this. And this isn't just some recent thing, even though the investigation itself only started a couple years ago. This is stuff that's dating back decades, or at least, all the way back, to 2010, 2013, and some of the allegations that are dropped in this lawsuit. And those would be built off of cultures that were developed on the years leading up to those events as well. And so I felt that after, having just gone through and started, tweeting about this really cool Diablo Immortal gift pack that I got with an embroidered hoodie and all that, it would, to me at least, I felt the need to also be honest about my feelings in regards to all of this, and that it should be something that's discussed and denounced, because these are allegations and such against Blizzard are the things that we were always well, at least that doesn't happen at Blizzard, right? You look back a couple years at Riot, and the sexual discrimination harassment lawsuits that the employees brought after that big expose back in 2018. And it was well, at least that stuff doesn't happen at Blizzard. You hear the horror stories of how people are treated over at Rockstar. And it's well, at least that stuff doesn't happen at Blizzard. But then you find out, that stuff happens at Blizzard too. It happens a lot, apparently. And this episode isn't going to be entirely going and talking about the lawsuit. It's not going to be all doom and gloom, though a fair decent of it, is going to be going through and trying to tackle, tough subjects like this, But I do want to go through and state that, at least, in my position, I really have nothing at risk for going through and, talking about these things and wanting to hold Blizzard accountable for these actions and for Blizzard to do better, to be a better company and to live up to the ideals that, we as Blizzard fans had expected, that this company was going through and providing all along, only to go through and find out that, no, Blizzard is pretty much just not just every other company in the gaming industry, but the majority of companies in tech and stuff like that. And it's not even just completely all the harassment and discrimination that women are going through and facing, because there's also stories of men that are going through and coming out in all of these that are coming to light after these allegations, when people are actually feeling as if their voices can be heard, when you have more of a collective resonance that's going through and chiming into all these terrible things that have happened. And it's really saddening. It's heartbreaking. It hurt me a lot. Anyone that's listened to the show knows I'm a Blizzard fanboy. I mean, you can go through And for those of you that are, like watching at home, you can see behind me, I've got a shrine to like Diablo with a ton of other, like StarCraft and Warcraft, like collector's edition and memorabilia in the back. So this to go through and see that, Blizzard isn't anything different or isn't anything special, compared to, other companies and such, because it hurts. It hurts when you see people that, you've had like professional relationships for years, or even people that you've come and developed into close friends, share stories about like the pain or the discrimination that they encountered while working there. Some cases it's been, constant, for years that they would have to go through and face this, or people that worked at the company, 7-8 years ago and we're going through and dealing with, bullshit like this. Not even just like, maybe necessarily like sexual discrimination, but just, people in higher up positions with completely untouchable egos that they can't take criticism, and they end up taking it out on, smaller devs or, people that work in the non-dev teams, such as community service or QA. Except, as on the show here, we consider anyone that works, at a gaming company as a developer, whether you work in community service, Q&A, or anything like that. You're a developer. You have equal stake in the development of these games and going through and giving feedback, to the game devs, the programmers, engineers, and such, with what the community is in tap to. Without people fulfilling those roles, then, how would people know, how would the developers know that the community is having certain reactions? And this is something that you can see that happens a lot, like, say, over on the World of Warcraft side, where a lot of times the developers are just like, oh, we didn't expect the community to react that way. It's like, well, if you were listening to the CS teams a little bit more, you might have a better understanding of what the community's wants are and such. I'm not trying to be like overly negative or anything like that, but it really hurts when you hear stories from people that worked, in the community management and such, and just how much, their pleas of trying to get the devs to understand community concerns just fell on deaf ears and such, and just like, for what reason? Why? Doesn't make sense. But then again, okay, trying to go through and stay on topic, here, without going in ranting or meandering as I am wont to do. I do want to at least go through and say that, there are a lot of people out there that are going through and they're boycotting Blizzard products. They're not playing games. They're uninstalling, unsubscribing, and that's perfectly understandable. You don't want to go through and show your support for a company that now has these massive allegations against them that they're mistreating their employees at like almost every level. And, I get that. I understand. There's a lot of hurt and rage, that can go into that, because a lot of us all hold Blizzard like in a much higher regard. But then at the same time, a phrase that I've heard, over and over again since all of these allegations dropped was that, there are always more victims than there are abusers. And so, to no longer support them, to uninstall the game, not play Diablo anymore and such, is sticking it to the people that were victims of all this harassment and abuse, as much as it is to the people in the corporate levels that just turned a blind eye and allowed all of this to happen under their watch. And but it does raise the question, is it okay to like a problematic thing? And the weekly reset with Taliesin and Evelyn from a couple weeks ago had a really great episode. If you follow me on Twitter, I know that it's probably like you might be getting sick of it by now, because like the only thing I've been tweeting for the last 2 weeks is all about like this lawsuit. I have not been silent or scared to go through and talk about this, and because I want Blizzard to be better. I want Blizzard to do better. I want Blizzard to go back to being the company that I held in such high regards that have all come crashing down. That's what I want. And and so I remain hopeful that maybe we can get we can get that Blizzard back again, or at least something closer. Because what is it? There's no ethical consumption under capitalism is something else that I've seen that's thrown out there, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to play Blizzard games anymore. Let me go and play like League or Valorant. Riot, of course, they had all of their discrimination cases back in 2018, and the thing that isn't as reported or talked about as much is that Riot is dealing with the lawsuit from the state of California that got filed back in February. Like, they're dealing with the same exact thing. You go through and you look at even Naughty Dog, Rockstar, like Ubisoft is another like huge one. In recent memory of all these companies that have these problematic kind of like frat boy cultures. And it's just what video games are there left to play? Oh, let's go and play New World, right? From Amazon, the the company that makes their workers piss in bottles to hit efficiency metrics, right? I'm gonna support that company and play that game. It's rough. It's really rough when you start going through and trying to take like an ethical or moral stance, because every company is shitty. You kind of like have to pick your battles and what you want. And one of the things that I at least am continuing to stand, on the side of the Blizzard employees, both current and former, is because they want Blizzard to be better and be the company that we all thought it was for all of this time. And so that's what I want to see. And I'm willing to support those voices that are speaking up and trying to make meaningful changes at Blizzard. Especially because not everyone at Activision Blizzard wants, to make certain changes and such. Because if you go through and you look at, Activision Blizzard, this is of course at the corporate level, their response has been entirely tone deaf. And like, even to the point of, well, these allegations are bullshit because it hasn't happened to me, and I've worked in a corporate level for 4 months at this company. Oh, or the allegations are like a decade old. So obviously that makes it better, right? Right? The allegations are old. That means they don't count. And then, going and hiring a very well-known law firm that has built its reputation on like union busting. They even have it like in their company description of union, what was it? It was union consultation and avoidance. And it's just definitely, you can see that ATVI is already in damage control. They had their Q2 earnings call today, and prior to that, earlier today, they let go of J. Allen Brack, who has stepped down, as president of Blizzard, and also the head of HR was let go today, not in a press release or anything like that, but was later found out and reported on like Bloomberg and such. And like, the majority of these allegations didn't even happen when Brack was president of Blizzard. It happened before, when Morheim was in charge. And so it definitely is like, this is just a sacrificial lamb. This is the goat that they hung out in the T-Rex cage, hoping to deflect attention. It doesn't make any meaningful changes. It doesn't actually hold anybody that perpetrated these acts, accountable. It's just throwing a name out there, maybe to appease shareholders and try to see if they're going through and doing something. And during the earnings call, it was mentioned that they're listening to their employee feedback, but at the same time, they've not acknowledged a single one of the employees' demands. It begins to, you begin to see a nature where they're going through and they're like, they're saying certain things and they're playing certain lip service with the way that they do things, but they're not actually making meaningful changes, to the company so far. Where we're not seeing, we're not seeing anything that the workers are actually asking for. We're just seeing more like political BS and such. And the employees are going through and they're putting together. There's a hashtag, better ABK, Activision Blizzard King. And there's literally just 4 things that the employees are asking for, like in their mandate. Number 1, an end to mandatory arbitration clauses in all employee contracts, current and future. Arbitration clauses protect abusers and limit the ability of the victims to seek restitution. Number 2, the adoption of recruiting, interviewing, hiring, and promotion policies designed to improve representation among employees at all levels, agreed upon by employees in a company-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion organization. Current practices have led to women in particular, women of color and transgender women, non-binary people, and other marginalized groups that are vulnerable to gender discrimination of not being hired fairly for new roles when compared to men. And this is something that you can see, and this isn't like something that is like, oh, like diversity police or anything like that. You have, like, just do a simple search and you'll find dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of testimony of women that were passed up on promotions and such. I mean, you can even go through and look here in the Diablo community. Nevelistus, Brandy, our former community manager, went through and shared the story about how she was actually the associate community manager for 5 of the 6 years that she worked on the team. And everybody knows her as the face of Blizzard, that was the person that represented Diablo to the entire community. It was like the sole community member that was working on Blizzard, towards the end. Or not Blizzard, but on Diablo, like, towards the end. And, she was an associate manager. She only, like, towards the end got promoted to community manager, and she was also denied, like, the manager of community management for the Diablo franchise. Well, she saw other people around her go through and get promoted. Her request to, like, go through and hire, like, additional people and such were, kind of fell on deaf ears. And then as soon as she goes and leaves, they hire 3 more. Because she was, like, doing, like, an insane workload. All for having the associate manager title, and not, anyone that had worked with Nevelistus, or if you kind of like had your finger to the pulse in the Diablo community, knew how much that she did, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes, and making sure that, like, the thoughts and concerns of the community were being heard by the developers. So it's one of those ones where it's like, it is, there is definitely, things that were going on that just were not fair to everybody. It benefited some and not others. And what they're meaning with, like, the second point is that they want it to be open. It's something that employees can go through and look at these policies and everybody can know. I know it's something that goes through and happens at my own company. Like, talking about your wages is a fireable offense. And in my position, I have access to some data, and I can tell you that one of the reasons that they go and do that is because I see managers doing different workloads and their pay does not speak to that. I have managers that are going through busting their ass and actually care about the company, and they're making like $10,000 a year less than other managers that kind of like sit behind the desk all day and only come out to the floor to help when it's like a crisis situation. Otherwise, they're watching YouTube or something, and it's telling. And if everybody knew what the other person was making, it would be a much different situation. But moving on, the third one, publication of data on relevant compensation, as I was just going through and talking about, promotion rates and salary ranges for employees of all genders, ethnicities at the company. Current practices have led to the aforementioned groups not being paid or promoted fairly. So that way you can go through and you can definitely see in those situations that it's like, oh, I've been, a QA analyst, or I've been a, associate community manager, or I've been just a associate environmental artist for 4 years. And you just hired on, this new person to go through and join the team. And they're making just as much money as I am. It's like, that doesn't make sense. I've been here for 4 years. Why are they making the same amount of money as me? in the same position, their prior experience might be nice and all of that, but I've worked at the company for 4 years, like I have the experience that you want. And then finally, their final one is to empower a company-wide, diversity, equity, and inclusion task force to hire a third party to audit ABK's reporting structure, HR department, and executive staff. It is imperative to identify how the current systems have failed to prevent employee harassment and propose new solutions to address these issues. And that goes back to, the whole fact that, the corporate management at Activision Blizzard has gone and hired a company that has ties, to multiple of the corporate level executives who either they have working relationships from like the State Department and the FDI, to just having used them for, other types of lawsuits and things like that in the past. And they can't be fair and impartial when they obviously have the corporate crew, in their, kind of like in their back pocket. And, so that's something that you saw, trending on Twitter today is a whole bunch of employees, current and former, that were going through and tweeting that, I reject Activision Blizzard's hiring of Wilmer Hale, in regards to this matter. It's important to go through and stand up for those things, because otherwise, things might not happen. Go back and look at Riot. They had that massive expose back in 2018. They had a private lawsuit filed by the employees against them. And their counter was, oh, well, the employees have arbitration clauses, so they can't actually, deliver testimony in like this lawsuit for discrimination and fair wage practices and such. And they're trying everything that they can not to help their employees, because when you go through and you talk to some of the women that were involved in this case that like either stayed or left the company, and it's like, well, things have kind of improved, but not really. And then one of the biggest perpetrators was like one of the co-creators of Riot, and he got sent on like a couple month paid vacation and had to take, sensitivity training. Like, what the fuck is that? And that's going to be like more or less the same thing that happens if the employees don't, come together in order to fight back against these types of practices. It's just going to be, you're going to have your sacrificial lambs like J. Allen Brack. They're going to deflect the cases over to either people that are named in the case, specifically hold them accountable, fire them if they even still work at the company, which the majority of the ones that are named, I don't believe, are still at Blizzard, or just continue to point at people that are no longer there. They're just going to try and deflect blame and not really make meaningful changes. And the one other common current in the stories that you're going and hearing from the employees is that, HR was not their friends. HR was there to protect, the company's interests, and in some cases were there to protect like the abusers because they had positions of power. Going through, and HR should not be defending the actions of, abusers and saying, no, they're just like that, or what were you wearing? And it's just like any of the stereotypical, like, completely tone deaf responses that you see get like betrayed in movies, which are so just like over the top comical that you can't believe that they're real, and yet real people are saying these in situations that are just like, it's just abhorrent. It's terrible. It's appalling. It's disgusting to go through and continue to read about these things. So, I'm definitely going through, standing with the employees on this one. I want Blizzard to do better. I want to be able to go through and play Diablo 4, Diablo 5, Diablo 6, Diablo Immortal 2, Diablo Battle Royale, or Diablo Dark Souls, or whatever's going to come out in the next like 30 years, with a clearer conscience. Because if things don't improve, if things don't get better, and they continue to maintain kind of this culture that creates possibilities for their employees to be abused or exploited, it's not a company that I want to continue to give money to. But I want to support the people that are trying to make the efforts for that company to be better, and so that's why it did take some thinking on it and some restless nights to go through and kind of like make peace with it, that it's okay to like problematic things, as long as you try, or at least hope that they can work on those problematic issues, so they can be a better company, they can do better. And that's what I hope Blizzard does, and it's something that I'm going to continue to follow, for throughout the course of this lawsuit, however long that it might take, and listen to the victims that are coming out with their stories, both past and present, and just go from there. But as I mentioned, at the beginning of the episode, it's not all bad stuff. It is what it is. And it's something that's going to kind of hang over all Blizzard news going forward. But I mean, we do have some really cool things, like patch 2.7.1 in season 24 are some of the best Diablo 3 has ever been. People are going through, having tons of fun. I don't know if you went through and you caught my stream at the beginning of the season when I was streaming for the Level with the Cause for the Save the Children Foundation. We had an amazing stream going through and raising money for the charity. We raised over, we ended up, I believe, at like $550 raised for Save the Children. So, thank you, bless you to everybody that went through and chipped in, towards the that great cause, that great charity. A huge shout out to Wolf Crier, that puts that on every single season. That has to go through and wrangle that massive beast on such short notice, because it's not like we really get too much of a heads up on when the seasons are going to start, and then he has to put all those pieces together of organizing the charity, getting all the streamers together, putting all the communication and stuff out there. So big props to the big man Wolf Crier on that one. And I will get around to going through and streaming. I do still want to get all of the ethereal weapons throughout the course of the season, unlock that feat of strength. I haven't played since that Saturday, that last stream that I did. Mostly, it's like, because it's like it bums me out, and it's still like at the time was going and processing through those emotions of learning all of this stuff coming to light. And then now I'm kind of in a crunch cycle. As I've mentioned on previous episodes, I've got my Warhammer tournament that's going through and coming up on August 14th. And I'm just in like a full-blown emergency mode with painting, and it's just not leaving. It's kind of like sucking up a lot of my free time. So in between, chores and spending time with, the girlfriend and everything, I've been trying to dedicate a couple hours every night, the time that I would normally spend like gaming, whatever it might be, to just painting. And I've got one weekend left, because I leave on Friday the 13th to go up there to the tournament, and I just realized that that's Friday the 13th. Ominous. But it is it's an ongoing process. I've been sharing some pictures on Twitter and such of the work that I've been going through and doing. I once the tournament passes, my schedule should free up a little bit, and I'll be going back playing some Diablo. We'll see about streaming it. You know me and streaming. I rarely have the energy to go through. I mean, props to our community for being able to go up there like every day and be able to stream and blast, in the Diablo game, make it an enjoyable experience for the community, because I don't have it in me in order to go through and do something like that every single day. I am definitely not a streamer. I prefer to sit back and talk, right? But yeah, and it's something that it's like the feedback. It's not just from like the streamers and some of the big content creators. Their communities too have all been going and saying, like, this season, and like the play styles that get unlocked, the hunt of going through, every time you see that lovely teal beam, it just tickles a spark of joy, because like these items are awesome, they're impactful. When you actually go in and you handcraft and put like these specific properties on it, because it's just like, say you're playing a necromancer and you see like a Scythe of the Cycle drop before you identify it, it's like, it needs, XYZ stats to be rolled on it, no socket, and all those other things in order to be good. Or even if it's a primal that is like, well, shoot, I hope it doesn't roll with, life on hit and like vitality or something like that, because then, that's rip on that item. It's it's knowing exactly what you get and only having the surprise of like the passive and the legendary effect. And for like a lot of classes, the passive is just like whatever. Some builds, like, they really only need like 3 passives, and the 4th is just like, whatever. It's like a freebie. And so then having a 5th from the weapon is, it don't matter what it is. I don't have any better choices to put in there anyways. Just getting the right weapon property, can go through. Or even if you get we're early on in the season, or if you haven't been blasting yourself and you're still going and getting your gear together, to go and start hitting like, the GR100s or what have you, you're still cranking up to Guardian. It can just be fun because you go through and you find something drops and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to base my entire build around this item because it went through and dropped. It's like, I got an okay. It's not the legendary I was looking for, but I got an okay one, and all the other skill bonuses are just like insane. So why not? Let's go through and play this build. Let's try it out. And people are just having a blast. People are loving it, absolutely loving it. And I hope that this is something that comes to stay. We know that the ethereals are not going to copy over to the non-season. They are gone after this. But maybe, just maybe, in future seasons, they might still go through and add in some weapon types like this. Or maybe they can go back and reassess primals. Make primals, for as rare as they are, maybe a bit less random. So that way when you see one drop, you are excited. It's not just, oh boy, I got a ring that's probably just gonna go through and roll, like Vit, life percentage, and like all res. I want, and not even main stat. If they just, it is something that has been a big topic of mine for the longest time. Of when you take the time to go through and hand make systems and give it a little bit less to RNG, you get more meaningful experiences. Especially when you look at greater rifts and such. If people were able to experience the custom rift that they made at BlizzCon a few years ago, where it actually had like sub bosses and like little things that you had to do and challenges and things within the rift, like if people got to experience that and you could make it like harder and more challenging instead of like the pre-built gear that you used during that that demo, I think that would open up a whole other play experience. Who knows? Maybe it's still outside of the realm for Diablo 3, though we're getting more and more content than I would ever have thought possible. If you had asked me that we would be getting like this type of content updates for Diablo 3 like a year ago, even when they started like really ramping up the production of the game, or like for the seasons and really making us excited about seasons again, I wouldn't have believed you. Like this is just awesome to see everything that they're going through and doing. And the future is definitely very bright. For Diablo 3. There's still a lot of life left in this game. There really is. And also, it's August. It's August. The Diablo 2 beta is just around the corner. We even have, we have the confirmation that the game isn't delayed. Let's see. I can go through and pull it up here on the screen. Yesterday, Pez Radar, our lovely community manager, went through and said, nothing is delayed. Beta is still in August. We will have more news soon. And so it's just like, it's funny because this forum post over on the official Blizzard forums was just asking, it's like, oh, I think Diablo 2 has been delayed. because of the lawsuit and all the allegations and such, that obviously it's going to cause problems. Maybe not something for as close to release as D2R is, but for something like Diablo 4, it could potentially cause some problems, especially if we really don't know the full extent of things that happened and what each of the teams are. Now, the WoW team and the Battle.net team are like the two big ones that have been called out in the lawsuit, but it's naive to think that it doesn't happen. That's a WoW issue. It doesn't happen on the Diablo team. It'd be naive to think that it doesn't happen on Diablo. We just have to assume that it does. And so it could have, maybe some long-lasting effects on like the Diablo 4 development, since that game is still pretty far out. We don't know, and I'm okay with it. Just putting it out there, I'm fine. Delay, Diablo 4. Delay Diablo 2 if it means that the employees are treated better and with more respect. 100% okay. Fine in my book. But, Diablo 2, the beta is still starting in August. Looking forward to it, even though I still can't play an assassin or a necromancer. But it is, and the game is still set for release on September 23rd. And we've got there was the Activision Blizzard earnings call today, and we got a little bit of tidbits on that one. We went through and we got to see, specifically for the Diablo, the highly anticipated Diablo II Resurrected will launch on PC and console on September 23rd. Diablo Immortal is continuing to progress well with testing, receiving excellent feedback for its gameplay. The team is pursuing additional opportunities to make this title even more engaging for a wider audience, and the launch date is now slated for the first half of 2022. And I'll be covering Diablo Immortal in a little bit. And then finally, Blizzard continues to make strong progress on Diablo 4 and is allocating substantial resources to creating exciting in-game content to drive engagement over multiple years. All pretty cool. That's stuff that we like to hear, right? Work is continuing. Everything looks good. So I'm looking forward to Diablo 2 Resurrected. It's gonna be fun. We'll see, depending upon when. Like it would say, for the rest of the community would love Diablo 2 Resurrected beta to drop tomorrow, but I would be sad because I really wouldn't be able to play a lot of it because I gotta get this stupid army painted, and so I really wouldn't be able to take advantage of that and play around with it that much until after next week. Boo-hoo, first world problems, right? I'm going and playing in a giant nerd tournament, so I can't go through and fully appreciate my other nerd hobby. Woe is me. I fully recognize the first world issue going on right there. But it's looking good. It's looking awesome. And then as stated there, we did also have a blog post. Now you'll remember on last week's episode, I asked Blizzard to go through and give us a dev update for Diablo Immortal, kind of like how we had the feedback and the findings of the Diablo 2 Resurrected alpha, and we got a nice juicy post where they went through and talked about how they've implementing changes in the art and design, and I wanted to get something like that for Diablo Immortal. So obviously this all comes from me going through and asking on a very tiny podcast to go through and then put together the monumental effort of writing this blog. But yeah, it went through and we got some notes. They're going through and making some changes, like to the Heliquary system, where what the Heliquary was through going and doing various daily goals, you would get a resource that you could trade in for levels of the Heliquary, and it just gave you flat offensive and defensive rating, which is kind of like leveling up your character. It was just an alternate avenue of advancement that wasn't as fast or as powerful as like upgrading your gear or getting power Paragon levels, but still was something that you could make meaningful progression on your character day after day. you could go through and level up your Heliquary, either every day or every other day or every 3 days. The further along that you got, the higher the levels, the more, of the resource it took to do. And at certain thresholds, in the alpha, it was every 10 levels, you could go and fight a really difficult boss monster in order to get a permanent upgrade for the Heliquary that then gave you not just a massive bonus to your offense and defense rating, but also a passive bonus that you would get when completing challenge rifts. I believe the ones were like attack speed, just a flat crit chance, I think like a damage reduction or something like that. For the 3 ones that we had unlocked in the alpha. This is something that will be coming, time after time, and they'll be doing, when they were talking about this during the alpha, the idea was maybe monthly or but there would be a pretty, decent cadence to it of when they would go and develop additional monsters for you to fight for the Heliquary. And one of the changes that they're going and making, because people were hungry for more, challenging PvE content at max level, that they're making these Heliquary bosses even more difficult than they were. These were some of the toughest challenges in the game at the respective levels when they came out, at the time, for people to engage in. But now they are specifically going to be created as 8-player raids. So you have to have a full player group in Diablo Immortal is 4 people. So you've got 2 groups that have to come together in order to complete these challenges. And so it gives a little bit more incentive to group up and play together. Since Immortal is being marketed as an MMO ARPG, it just makes sense, going through and giving more high-end group-based content to play with. They also are wanting to go through, and they're implementing some changes with bounties to make them more targeted. You're not so when you go through and you get your 4 bounties, they're all going to be in the same zone. It reduces you having to go through and load the different waypoints, a whole bunch of map loading. It just makes the experience faster, more refined, and it's reducing that time requirement that you have to do every single day. Especially if they're all like in one particular area, you can go in with this change. I can already tell you're going to be able to knock out those bounties faster and faster. Because before, depending upon if you got a good set, maybe 45 minutes to like an hour and a half to complete all of the bounties every day, and this is just going to push that down and make it even faster. And so it doesn't feel you can fit a whole act's worth of bounties in much faster. As well as going and making it so that way challenge rifts are going to reward new upgrade materials that can't be obtained in any other way. And it's interesting because they go through and they say that, and I know what it means, but I don't know what it means. Because at least there wasn't any other systems in the game that were requiring like upgrade materials that you couldn't. Excuse me, pardon me. Sorry about that. There wasn't any other systems in the game that were requiring an upgrade material that you couldn't already acquire. So it's either going to make maybe like high end, like the 16 to 20 range for upgrading your gear require things from the upper challenge rifts. Maybe it'll be tied into the Heliquary system, or maybe it's just going to be another system that they haven't even announced yet. Because one of my thoughts on this was that during the Diablo Immortal playtest, we were specifically playtesting like the PvP and like PvPEVE content, and that the high end game PvE stuff we had not yet experienced, and that there would be other systems or mechanics that we had yet to see in the game, and that we're going to be waiting for the other testing cycle, which was supposed to come later this year, but with the game being delayed until the first half of 2022, we might not see. And that's okay. The game itself played phenomenal during the closed alpha, and I can only imagine it's going to get better. You've got they're going to relook at the battleground system, making it more enjoyable. They're going to evaluate matchmaking. The class balance was another one, as well as like the time to kill, in order to try and make it a better experience for everybody that was there, or everybody that participated in it. They're going to make some passing changes to the cycle of strife. That is going to continue to optimize that feature. They didn't really give any clear indication or anything like that about what they're going to do. I hope that there's some room for improvement on like the Immortal side, because it's just like go and do regular stuff and you get more rewards. It doesn't feel as engaging as being a Shadow, where you got like a whole new like PvE mission that you got to go and do every day. And then like the big one, the creme de la creme from this whole article is controller support. The devs have talked about it. They talked about it back at BlizzCon Line. It was something that they had their eye on and they were working towards and such, but they came all the way up to the line of confirming that they were going to go through and make sure that controller support was something that was going to be added into the game. And they would say like maybe not at launch or something like that. But now they have confirmed controller support for Diablo Immortal. And it's also, I would imagine that this is part of the reason why the game is getting delayed to next year, and that is awesome. That is perfect. If the whole reason that the game is delayed to next year is just so that they have more time to implement controller support, beautiful. Because we've seen feedback from other people, and it's something that I experienced myself. Even I even got like a controller thing to put the phone into to help ease your grip. After longer play sessions, it could get kind of crampy on the hands. Other people that might have issues and such, weren't able to play. I remember, watching some of Kriparian's streams while he was playing Hearthstone and was commenting, "Oh, the reason why I'm not playing Immortal is because it doesn't have controller support. Like he, because of like the condition with his shoulder and such, that he can't play on a phone. Like he needs to be able to use a controller in order to play the game." And so this is just going to open it up to more. It's gonna stick the landing, and it's going to be even more amazing. That anybody that wants to play it and experience like a really great game, but they're concerned about playing on their phone for hours at a time, but it's going to be easier to just go through, grab a controller, connect it to your phone, and be able to blast from there. It's the right call. It's the right move to make. And this is the thing that at least I'm always will be enamored with on the Diablo team, is just how much they do value community feedback in many respects. This has been the loudest, most requested feature since the technical alpha back in December. Was just like the first feedback was like, you need controller support. Controller support, controller support, controller support. It has been hammered into the devs time and time again, and well, they've listened and they've relented. And the higher ups have also went through and said, you make a great case, sure, we're okay with delaying the game because it's going to make a better overall experience for the player. And of course, which means it's going to make the executives more money. But let's keep it on a more positive note for the time being. 9. Let's go with the happy, naive, optimistic look for the rest of the episode, right? And then finally, they go through and they talk about character progression. It's something that I never experienced because they had like these XP caps and such, and like, man, you had to play. You're talking like you had to like just like do like half Leoric XP runs for like 12 hours, and then you would like cap your experience, and then you'd have this warning that sat on your screen the whole time that your XP bonus pool is depleted, and so you're only gaining like half XP and such. They talk about they're going to be replacing the weekly XP cap with like a global cap that just increases over time. That maybe it's something that maybe is not like hard coded to like weekly resets and can be raised every day. But the biggest change in this one is it means that if anybody starts playing the game, they have the opportunity to catch up. Because if you, and this is something that we saw on the closed alpha, is that if you didn't blast like on that Friday, like when the game itself dropped, or the Thursday when the game itself dropped, and you didn't blast through that weekend to Monday and like hit that XP cap, you were forever behind. That's I believe it's like Lex had like compatibility issues with his phone or something like that, and so he couldn't actually play for the first few days. And then just like because he missed it, he was just forever like 40 levels behind the rest of the blasters, because he went through and he hit that game hard. but he could not catch up to the rest of the people because he was forever missing one whole week's worth of that XP cap. And there's no catching up at that point. Now with this implementation of it's like a kind of like a global XP cap, is everybody's limited to the same amount. And if you miss a week, you can make up for it in the next week. As well as maybe introducing some like bonus experience for people that play less often. You know, think of it like rested XP that you see in a lot of MMOs. You know, you log out in the end or something and you get like double XP or 50% XP bonus, you know, for like a little increment of time and such. That just gives people incentive that maybe, you know, sure, you don't have to blast on the weekends. Go play other games or spend time with your family or something like that. Or you don't have to blast because you're going and taking a vacation. You know, you can come back and, you know, hit the game and, you know, have a like a kind of like a meaningful catch-up mechanic. And so that's all cool, that's all fine. The one thing that I do have a slight concern on is the whole they mentioned that they're going to be implementing a system that will enable players with higher Paragon levels or players taking on higher difficulties to receive more powerful items. Now, that was another complaint, is that there really wasn't a lot of point of playing like Hell 2 or Hell 3 compared to Hell 1. The increase in the item acquisition didn't really seem to be noticeable comparative to the difficulty that it was in order to kill monsters. Eventually, you would get to the point where your player power was enough that well, you're face rolling everything, it doesn't matter. But for those people that were still in the climb, it was just more efficient to play on Hell 1. There wasn't really a reason to play on Hell 2 or Hell 3. Now they're going to be going through and implementing, you know, a system that will give more powerful items to those who played, you know, because the extreme rarity of the triple stat legendaries during the closed alpha, that almost seemed as if triple stat legendaries were a bug, you know, a nice afterthought, but maybe they'll have like that's the way that you actually unlock those with the better statted items, the higher statted items. You know, we'll be behind those. But then the concern of also having it tied to maybe higher Paragon levels, it kind of feels like a rich get richer type experience. You know, so it's something that I'll keep an eye on. Obviously, there's not enough information there to like make a full judgment call or to understand the system. We don't know what it is that they're going through and doing, but it is still just at least the thoughts on it. It's like, you know, I can understand making people that play the higher difficulties have access to better loot. That gives a reason of playing the higher difficulties. But if it's also tied just to your higher Paragon level, you know, the two kind of go hand in hand. If you're a higher Paragon level, you're playing higher difficulties anyways. But, you know, if it's just like, you know, I could be in like the Paragon 50s and still be able, you know, to kill stuff and participate in Hell 3, but people that were like Paragon 150 were able to like clear it faster. In addition to also having the bonus of just being Paragon 150, it's kind of like, I'm just going to continue to fall further and further behind, and there's no hope of catching up, you know, in that particular scenario. So it's just, is what it is. It's my only concern. And then, of course, you know, they went through and also on that call, they discussed that Blizzard continues to make strong progress on Diablo 4 and is allocating substantial resources to creating exciting in-game content and delivering engagement over multiple years. You know, the Diablo 4, all eyes are on that one. We got, you know, I think that we still have some time. You know, between like COVID, you know, this lawsuit and everything else, 2022 is looking less and less likely of the actual release for the game. Maybe 2023, you know, might be closer and closer to it, you know, to when we're going to go through and see this drop. But I mean, it's the same thing with Diablo Immortal. Stick the landing, 110% fine if the game takes a little bit longer to develop. If we get a better product for it. So yeah. kind of goes through. And oh, one more thing before I forget, because I forgot to actually put it on the show notes, but I'm looking at my open tabs, and so I remember now. There is a Spanish website, diablonext.com, and they have been data mining the build numbers for the development builds, and they kind of like over on their website have a version history, which let me go through and bring it up on the screen, but they have like a version history of the different builds for Diablo 4 that are like publicly available. This is something that we saw like last week. I believe it was the console versions got a version update, and there was a new build that got deployed to the console versions. And then just a few days ago, on the regular non-console CDNs, a whole other build number was. And the reason, well, they do these build number updates and such, and we don't really know what any of it means, but all of the previous build numbers that we've had access to were version 0.0.1. Whatever. And now, instead of the 001, it's just 02. And that one, obviously, we don't actually know what it means, but we can at least try and infer that maybe it's a significant update. Because the previous ones were kind of like, would go back and forth between like the builds were called Fenris Vendor or Dev, and then the last couple have gone back to Dev. So whereas the last couple updates that we had, might have been like going through and making it available to third parties for compatibility tests or optimization mechanics for like the programming and code, because we've seen Microsoft, like some Microsoft articles come out and how they're using like some certain Microsoft utilities and such in order to build a better framework for programming, and they've been going and doing these in part with the Diablo 4 team, talking about how they've been using like the Microsoft frameworks and such to make better code debugging for the development that's been going on for Diablo 4. But these builds have been labeled Dev. And so maybe this is a new test. As we saw in one of the past developer updates, was somewhere around like the middle of the year, there was like they did like a big team-wide zone test. They went through and like we've got all of the dry steps together. Let's go and play through it. Let's go through, test it. Maybe this is another form of that. Maybe it's the entire game is available for testing from start to finish. Maybe not everything is implemented, but they can at least do a dry run through the story. We won't know. Maybe they'll tell us more. We just have another 2 months. Before the end of this quarter. We'll have another development blog update at some point by the end of September. Maybe they'll go back and hit some more crunchier topics. Not that I loved the art topic in the last one, and the character design, that was great. I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see like one on music, but maybe we'll get something a bit more about the mechanics and systems and such in the game. They'll talk about items is always, of course, a big topic. Skills, gameplay are always big topics. We'll see. But with that, I know I meandered about it a whole bunch at the beginning of the episode, but I do thank you for going through, continuing to listen, to the show. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still gonna be here going through and covering Diablo content, because Diablo's our game, and we have just as much claim to it as anybody else, and I want to see Blizzard do better. And so I'm gonna stick around and help try and give a voice to those employees at Blizzard that are trying to make Blizzard better. I'm just a guy retweeting stuff on the internet. There's not a lot of impact that I can have in order to affect change at Blizzard, but I'm definitely doing anything that I can to support the employees that are trying to actually make meaningful change at the company. So that way it is the company that I have always envisioned it to be, but, you know, behind the scenes really wasn't over the years. But as I said, we're gonna keep it, you know, kind of on the positive note and such. And so we're just gonna close out the episode here. You know, thank you again for going through, coming out, checking out the episode, listening to me rant. You know, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to drop me email at westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. Again, that email address is westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. You can follow the show. It's on Twitter at the WM Workshop, or you can follow me on my personal account at 9ballgamer. Though, truth be told, for the next couple of weeks, it's probably just going to be painting and Warhammer talk and such as I go and try and focus on that tournament. In addition to just, you know, retweeting, you know, voices that have, you know, more impact on the matters going on at Blizzard than my own. And I hope to go through and catch you, and I hope to have a positive tournament report going through coming up when I record the next episode, which should be on August 18th. But, you know, just follow the show or myself on Twitter, and I'll be able to go through and hit you with updates, because otherwise we do record the show here every other Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific over at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. You can find all the episodes uploaded on YouTube, or, of course, you know, iTunes, Stitcher, your podcasting platform of choice. And with that, I wish you all a good evening, and I'll catch you all next time.